What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Solutions Podcast. As always, host Ramzy. So today we have a very interesting interview, a very interesting individual that we're going to interview. That he's going to give us his side of leadership, his perspective on things, and we're going to overall make the world a better place. Give it up for the host of the Roger Sargent Podcast, Mr. Cruz. To the Solutions Podcast. Appreciate you coming in. So, how should we address you? Let's start off with that.
You can just call me Saeed.
Saeed? All right,
Hmm.
man. So, if you don't mind, right? So, how I ran into your page was through seeing how you provide a lot of admin information or a lot of updates to the admin to regulations, to military regulations. But if you don't mind giving a little bit of background on yourself and how you got started in doing that.
Yeah, that's easy. So I've been in the military for going on 17 years in September, and back in 2017, I was appointed to be an instructor, and from there on, I just kind of got like a passion of just like teaching. You know, like when you're teaching someone to do something, you see that light bulb just turn on.
Mm-hmm.
So from there on, I just kind of like thought about like how can I be more influential, how can I put more information out for these soldiers? So from 2017 to 2020, I did that, came over here to Texas and did a couple other things. But and then I found TikTok and how to use it. I bought a whole bunch of this stuff for studio, and
Mm-hmm.
from there it's just been on because I just think that soldiers don't know as much as they should, and it's
Yeah.
our fault as leaders. So that's kind of how I got into it, just wanting to give the soldiers information, and ultimately it branches. It's going to branch into me giving soldiers a voice, like talking to them, interviewing them. So that's how I
Oh,
got started.
no, sounds good. Where were you instructing at?
I was in the Seventh Army NCO Academy over there in Grafenberg, Germany.
Oh, okay. Is that a BLC instructor or?
That was BLC, Basic Leaders Course, correct?
Okay, cool. So for those that do not know, basic leaders course is the introduction to, like, the example of the Marine Corps has its sergeant's course, or it might be actually the equivalent of corporal's course, something like that, right? But it's basically the entry level leader course in order to be able to be successful in the military, right? Something like that.
Correct.
Okay, cool. So you got into TikTok, right? TikTok is one of those things that blew up and you can make it real quick, right? As a matter of fact, I just started talking to I don't know his actual name, but he calls himself Jacoby. Jacoby, you know
Jacoby?
what I'm talking about?
Nah, I haven't seen. I gotta see.
Is
Maybe I
a
have, but
it's
I just don't
a
know.
he's a National Guardsman recruiter, but he makes a lot of funny videos. He calls himself Private Jacoby when as making fun of himself. But you could look him up. Sergeant Knucklehead is what.
Yes, I
Yes.
think I know you're talking about. He's real big on Instagram too.
Oh, okay. So yeah, we just made contact with him, so we're gonna be doing show with him later on. But yeah, so what? So you said that you kind of seen like a gap, right? It looks like you saw a gap between knowledge, and that's what got you to get the show started. Was this through COVID? Did that kind of like up the thing since it was due to lack of contact, or?
No, just overall experience when you talk to soldiers on a day to day basis, and COVID I think could have ramped it up because that's when TikTok really went big, and you start seeing, and a lot of soldiers they just don't know. Like they come on
Mhm.
and you can see like the way that they present their content on the social media is that they're unaware,
Yeah.
and then talking to them like, oh, I didn't know that. I'm like, what do you mean you didn't know that? Like you're about to be in an NCO, and you're
Hmm.
still unaware of these things that you should know, like 670-1 and 7-22, and which is ABCP 600-9, like things like that
Hmm.
that they just don't know. So when you identify that gap, someone has to try and fill it, and there are multiple NCOs out there that are doing it. So it's shout out to all of them as well.
Oh yeah, 100%. But one thing, when we actually spoke on the phone, I asked, and apparently you're not admin yourself.
I'm not. I'm a medic. I'm 68 whiskey.
Uh huh.
But I keep my ear to the admin world because that's where most of this, a lot of the discrepancies are.
Hmm.
I just did a video about the grooming and stuff like that. People didn't know about it.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's 3 years old, yeah, some that did know it, but it got 170,000 views and like 9,000 likes. So that means and a lot of comments, and a lot of people just didn't know. You know what I mean?
Really?
So, and this is something that's going on since 2021.
Yeah.
And one second, I did another one a couple days ago about the parental leave,
Mm-hmm.
the 12 weeks, and
Okay.
how to walk through on putting it in through IPSE. And a lot of things they just don't know. And I just I pay attention to S1 Guru and get all my information from there.
Oh, nice, nice. So, are you aware about the differences between the active component and the guard, such as the guard still using the 831s?
I know I get a lot of DMs, not like anything crazy, but I get a lot of
Mm-hmm.
DMs. And one of the DMs was from I think he was reservist. And he was asking me how does it, because he got promoted to Sergeant First Class, but
Okay.
he didn't know how to do it. And that helps me because now I'm putting my ear to the street. I have a memo that I'm going to do a TikTok on maybe next week,
Mm-hmm.
and in reference to like promotions and stuff and how it works with the guard, because it everything that comes out for us is typically applies to the guard and the reserve component, but
Yeah.
you guys have to wait until it's put out through your channels for it to take effect, which takes a month or so.
Yeah,
But
so with the guard, we're a little bit behind the curve, but it's a beautiful process, right? So as I mentioned before, I just finished the Army instructor course, and we had a mixture between guard and active duty individuals trying to get certified, and the active component was just shocked. They're like, "Wait, how are you guys operating the way you're operating?" Such as, again, for us, like a full S1 shop, like it's a whole admin shop. For those who don't understand the terminology, it's just one person at the
mm-hmm,
company level. It's just one person does all the awards, the memos, every single thing for everybody, right?
mm-hmm,
And then you push that up to the one battalion S1,
mm-hmm.
and now it's still again one person running all five companies, all the soldiers for the battalion. And finally, when you get to the brigade level, you get two people.
Oh
You know,
man,
yeah.
no.
So the guard does. We're like the army from Wish sometimes. You know what I mean? You
Yeah,
know.
the army from Wish. Yeah,
As far as that side of the house goes, as
yeah.
far as performance though, I've had a lot of good experiences deploying with the Army National Guard. They do a lot of I said the guard people. You'll have people deployed 6 to 8 times just because it's the only way. Like they just jump on deployments because you can just jump on volunteer. No one stops you. So that's an interesting part of it. But yeah, man. So what other what are some things that you deal with on the daily basis? Let's say when it comes to your soldiers or people you talk to that really confuses them. So like you talked about the grooming standards. Even to me to this day, I get confused. Same rank, bro, and I get confused. I feel like the regulations changing every 5 days. So what can you say is a good rule of thumb or a good source to just check in to be able to stay up to date?
I typically get all my stuff from s1net.com, S1 Guru, and just staying and HRC. The old famous saying or the quote, whatever it is, you want to hide something from someone, put it in a book. It's
Okay.
literally like that. Like you gotta you gotta want to find this stuff. And I think since
Okay.
I've been doing the podcasting, the YouTube, the TikToks, it makes me have to find this stuff
Mm-hmm.
that I wouldn't have found before. Kind of like when I was an instructor,
Mm-hmm.
I learned so many things that I would not be looking for because I'm a medic with a 68 whiskey with a Yankee 8, which is allergy immunization. So I stick to my niche, right?
Okay.
But when you broaden and go general and you're trying to help people, you got to know where to go. So S1Net, S1 Guru, HRC, just stay
Mm-hmm.
paying attention to mill per message, memos, Alorats, all of that stuff, and you just got to want to do it. Once a week, you can go in there into Mill Suite and just siphon through it and see what applies to you or what you want to put out. But that's what you're gonna have to do. You got to want to find it. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
And that's what's messed up, right? You got to dig and dig and dig to find something that we should all know, right?
Correct.
That
And
that is
people,
what's insane, and I feel that like in our early career, right? It was a lot easier because we were more of a directive military, right? It's like, hey, you
correct.
do what I say, and then luckily, and since we've been in around the same time, it seems like we were both in through the transition, the hardcore do as I say, not as I do.
Yep.
to when we finally started questioning stuff. It's like, wait,
Mm-hmm.
wait, 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 wait. Where are you getting your information? Not this. I was told back in the day. This is how
Mm-hmm.
it was done. This is how we
Correct.
always done it, right?
Yep.
That's a
That's how
scary
we
one,
always.
right?
Man, that's the worst.
That is the worst, right?
It
This is
is.
how we always done it.
Mm-hmm. I think just like you said, you and I we're like hybrids. We have a little bit of old school, like we can turn that screw to the right and tighten
Yeah.
anybody up, but we also have the compassion to understand that we have to explain the why to these soldiers. Example would be soldiers are. I've seen. I was driving around probably like a year or two ago with my ex-wife, and
Hmm.
there were soldiers outside, and they were just picking grass with their hands, right?
Okay.
And to the naked eye, it's stupid. And to the
Hmm.
naked eye, you're wondering why would they do that? Because we have tools to do that. And I also share the same sentiment.
Hmm.
Also, if you flip it to the old school way, or just if you break it down, can they adhere to orders?
Yeah.
When I shout my three Ds, distance,
Hmm.
direction, description, are you sitting there and questioning me? Or are you just executing?
Yeah.
Because that can be the difference between your vehicle getting blown up, or your gunner getting hit, versus
Hmm.
you actually bringing everybody home. So while yes, it seems very crazy to have someone out there picking stuff with their hands, but I think if that's the reason behind it, then it kind of shows a little bit. There's a actual reason behind it, if that makes sense, versus just doing it because you have the power. Is that,
Yes.
you know what I mean? Another thing is, soldiers now have knowledge at their fingertips. They have their phones. They
They
just
have
go
you.
Google, and they have me, they have TikTok, they
Hmm.
have everyone. And anytime they have a question, like I answer any comment I get. If I have time, I will answer every comment and every DM that I get, and I'll do my best
Hmm.
and point them in the right direction. So they ask why because they want to know.
Yeah.
Not go throw the trash away. That's not a why. I'm not giving you a why for that because I told you to.
Yeah.
But sometimes they just want to know, why is it that we PMCS on Monday, and why do we PMCS this vehicle in this type of way? And you got to be able to explain that. And Simon
Yeah.
Sinek wrote a book called Start with Why, and I read that before I went into being an instructor, and it
Yeah.
helped me out a lot.
No, so one thing on that, right? So I have a thing called the pendulum theory, which is when we're, let's say, we're over here, right? Do as I
Mm-hmm.
say, not as no, not as I do, just robot style, right? We
Yes.
were here,
Mm-hmm.
and then we got the luxury to get right here for a little bit, and now we're over here where we do worry, if I shout my 3Ds,
Mm-hmm.
will they listen on time
Mm-hmm.
in an effective manner, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now I believe there was the SMA summit, I think it's called, not so long. It was like a few months ago. I was in Iraq still when it was going on, but I remember the sergeant major was talking about standards and discipline, and there was a
Mm-hmm.
comment that was made about standards and discipline is the reason why we have moldy barracks.
Ooh.
Yes. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I haven't I've been thinking about it, but there is a story right here in Fort Cavazos about moldy barracks,
Okay.
and I'm putting it out this week. I've been
Hmm.
just trying to figure out how to do it without giving people the wrong inclination, like, oh yeah, I want to do this lawsuit now, blah blah, but I want them
Hmm.
to understand if they feel bad, because it was a family. He's no longer in the army. It was a sergeant,
Okay.
his wife, and I think newborn baby and another
Hmm.
child. I know three for sure because the baby was born and had issues, respiratory issues. They
Okay.
got paid $10.3 million because of moldy barracks on Fort Cavazos. And
Okay.
what I'm trying to connect that to is VA, because I saw the VA loan lady. She put the information out. And
Oh,
how
okay.
is it? How is it that we go get a VA loan and we have to get an appraiser, and we have to get an inspection, and it has to be habitable
Hmm.
for buying.
Yeah.
However, for you to stuff soldiers throughout the barracks in Fort Liberty, back when it was called Fort Bragg, they had asbestos issues.
Hmm.
So how is it that we're allowing our active duty soldiers on post to live with their families with that in that way? But yes,
Hmm.
that Standards and discipline, yes. The moldy barracks.
so there that was a point in, and I'm not sure if it was the SMA that said that or it was a sergeant major that spoke on it that's
Hmm.
mentioned that comment. And I remember people on they recorded it, of course, and they put it on TikTok and all the things, and people went wild. I feel so bad for that poor sergeant major. He's probably, you know, on
He
his
wasn't
way to
expecting it.
retirement, right? So, but what ended up happening, right, is that he made that comment, and people, I feel people saw it objectively,
Hmm.
right? So because there is a lot of times, right? Again, we talked back in the day because I started off with active duty, right? But back in the day,
Hmm.
E5 will go straight into your room, check all your corners and everything, make sure everything was clean and perfect, right? There is a lot of self damage when it comes to these barracks, when it comes to how these kids are taken care of it, because we don't as the E5 level or even a corporal, right? So when I was going through, so I actually went from PFC to corporal back in the back of the day, back when corporal was a thing, because in the combat arms, right?
Hmm.
And we would check every single thing, make sure everything was clean and perfect. And I felt that that actually led to the longevity of what we had, right?
Correct.
But that's where we go into that whole pendulum thing that I talk about with the balance, which is like, okay, well, that was overkill. The things that we have are still messed up. There that we don't take away from that, but at the same time, are we taking care of them? Right? Because
Hmm.
it's another thing when it's kind of like when you have something new, you want to take care of it and everything. But when you walk into a mess, it's hard to want to take care of it. When it comes from a psychology standpoint, right? But when it comes to a soldier standpoint, it should be like we need to leave it better than what we came to it.
Yes.
But
It's so weird. It's almost like we're meant to talk. I don't know if you can see that. You probably can't. But this is
no,
nah. You can't. It's rough. But this is a picture that our NCO chat. It's a barracks. What is this called? Laundromat, and
okay,
it's wrecked. And then it
okay,
shows outside. It shows those. These are cement like tables that you sit in with the chairs. They're broken.
hmm
So, I mean, we have to enforce these standards, but when we're not around, soldiers also
hmm
have to take care of this stuff. You know?
oh yeah, no, that's the stuff that they're talking about, and I think that's what the sergeant major meant to say.
Yes, yes,
You know.
exactly. Because when we're temporary, I'm not. It's just like with the light, with the electricity. Soldiers will leave electricity on, and because they don't pay for it, right? So
hmm
they'll leave the lights on in every room. They leave,
hmm
and I'm not sure. I can't remember. I know years back they were trying to enforce paying for electricity on post
Yes.
because it was so reckless.
hmm
And that goes back to that temporary mindset of, well, I'm only here for a little bit, so I'm not going to treat this as if this is my home, but you should because you're living in it. So.
No, and they should, right? And they should, and that's what kills me. You know what kills me the most is I have PCS. I can't count the amount of times I have PCS. But what the people that move your stuff, how sad they are when they deal with military people and clean their stuff.
Hmm.
Like they're like, it's so nasty, and I have a different vision of what the military was supposed to be. I thought y'all were disciplined and were clean and so on and so forth. And it's sad when they say, hey, like, you're the exception, not the rule
Yeah.
of the rule that we thought existed.
Yeah.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah. Yo, you're speaking facts because we people think that we're the 1% and 2% of America, right?
hmm
So when you go across the waters, because I spent 10 years overseas in Germany, and when I speak to like Germans, like they expected us to be kind of like Marines,
hmm
not fat, very
Yeah.
disciplined, look
Yeah.
good, look the part, represent them, and we're crazy. I'm not gonna lie. We're but and then again, we're just normal human beings at the end of the day. So we also make mistakes.
Yeah, and see that's the thing that gets me. It's funny you mentioned the Marines right now. So I was in a joint billet in Iraq, and I'm also in a joint billet right now in the school
Mm.
that I'm at. And it's the same thing. Like you see a Marine in their dress uniform, and you cannot see a flaw. And it's
Nothing.
just you look at our people, and it's just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I see them. I go and look in the mirror. I'm like, am I wrong? Like
It's bad.
it is bad. And what's messed up is that we as an army, as senior leaders, have to look at the Marines for an example of what we used to be. And it's crazy because they're able to modernize. They've been able to modernize as well. Like they're not as hardcore as they used to be and everything, but they have been able to keep up the standards, discipline, and reputations. Now I'm sure if we get a senior Marine, they might say different, right? They might say, oh, it's not the same as it used to be, but in comparison to the rest of the forces, when it comes to those aspects, standards, disciplines, and traditions,
Yes.
they're on point, right?
I
One
agree.
time where I was working at it was like a, how can I say, like the mayor cell type unit, right? I remember that there's a first sergeant that he was very, very like high strong, right? He was very high strong. He was a former Marine, and I remember he said like, "What is it with the army that has these signs, paper signs with just tape everywhere, and it just looks unprofessional? Like every sign that you see on a Marine post is on a frame and is worth looking at." Yep.
Yes. I had a colonel. His name
Yeah.
was Colonel Bowers, and he called that graffiti. He ordered, and this is in a medical treatment facility. This is when I was in
Okay.
Schweinfurt.
Mm-hmm.
He had our supply order. I don't know how many, but order frames, and those are the ones that kind of like opened up like metal on the outside, and you put whatever the announcement is, and you close them on all four sides. And anytime there was something to be put on the wall, it had to be in a frame. He
Mm-hmm.
despised that. It called it graffiti, and I never ever go away from that. And anywhere I go, even now, like
Mm-hmm.
people just slap things up with tape and call it a day. And it's like, again, the sign of professionalism. And this is, we're all letting this go by.
Yeah.
All of us,
Oh
every
yeah.
last one of us that passed by it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I was on my last position. Well, I was a equal opportunity advisor, right, for big area, right, and they just gave me like some very nasty signs to print, right. But I get it, we're overseas, right. But it was like some paper. I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna do that. So I remember my SARC counterpart. They just pretty much put like black tape around. It looked horrible. And right next to it, I at least put the tape behind it, like double wrapped it, tape kept it nice and flat, evened out and everything. At minimum, that's all I could do, right? That's all I could do at the time. But it was just like, why are we allowing this?
Yeah,
Because we can. It's like how is a base commander or a base CSM not on people? Like, what is this, right? You're talking about a base SARC and an EOA. Like those things are seen, those
correct.
signs are looked for, right? And they're looking like that. And that colonel, I agree with that colonel, man. Like we pretty much just putting, paperized graffiti all over our bases, and
Yep.
it's unfortunately reflecting on the rest of the stand. At least I feel, right. I feel as if it's reflecting on the rest of the standards that we uphold. We have these leaderboards with just a bunch of thumbtacks,
Yep. Slap
a
it on
bunch of
there.
papers nobody wants to read. Some stuff you look at it and it says 2003. It's like, what? Why? Why? What are we doing?
Yes,
As an
you're not
organization, what are
wrong.
we doing? But it's the reality of it. So the question is, how would you combat that in your organization? Or how do you combat that in your organization?
How do I? Honestly, I don't. Let's
Okay.
just be honest about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it starts from the top down. I'm not gonna lie, because when Colonel Bauer set that precedence,
Mm-hmm.
everybody fell in line, right?
Mm.
And at the time, I think I was just I was between specialist and sergeant, so I might have been a sergeant at the time.
Mm-hmm.
You imagine a sergeant telling these staff sergeants, this detachment sergeant, "Hey, we need to order this stuff,"
Mm-hmm.
and they may or may not pay
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
pay me any mind. And that's one thing I've kind of done in my time
Mm-hmm.
in the army, and just as a person, is if someone's talking to me, I give them the respect to listen. I don't care
Mm-hmm.
what rank. Like I say good morning, I say hey, how's it going, and I have a small casual conversation with the junior enlisted soldier that's on staff duty every day when I walk into my brigade.
Yeah.
Hey, how's it going? Everything good? Hey,
Hmm.
don't work too hard, whatever it is. Don't let them work you too hard. Blah, blah. Just something to brighten their day. And that just shows you're acknowledging that individual and you're showing respect towards that individual, right? And when you do that, I think that gives them confidence to talk and voice opinions and things of what you're talking about, like combating what they see wrong at the time. It doesn't have to be the graffiti. It can just be someone has their bootlaces unbloused and be like, hey, your bootlace unbloused, because they feel like they have a voice and they're being acknowledged. But
Yeah.
if it's a hey, don't talk to me, don't acknowledge me, I'm not going to acknowledge you type environment, then everyone's going to stick to themselves. Like I
Yeah.
walk past majors and majors don't acknowledge me.
Yeah.
I walk past master sergeants and they look at me like I'm nobody. I've had that happen to me in my career. I'm not saying it's actively happening,
Yeah.
but when like everyone's busy,
Hmm.
but I always say if I were higher ranking than you, would you acknowledge me?
Hmm.
And in my thought process, the answer is always going to be yes, because that's customs and courtesies. You always
Correct.
acknowledge the individual.
Yeah.
So I think when in order to combat it, to answer your question, we have to make everyone feel like they're part of the organization. You start by acknowledging everyone and showing respect.
Oh yeah, no, I 100% agree. But on the other side of the house, I walk through PFCs all day and they don't even look at me like I'm a human being too. They just walk
Correct.
right past me.
They
And
do.
how I see that it could be an experience of that was bad with somebody else, right? Because
Yeah.
I remember
Could be.
there was a time when I was I think it was like I don't know, I think it was like an E3, very
Hmm.
aggressive, high testosterone back then, right?
Yes.
And I, as a major that walked by, stand at attention, salute, did all the right things, didn't even acknowledge, just kept going. In my mind, I was like, well, fuck you then. But that could have been it. I'd be like, I'm not even going to address these people anymore.
Hmm.
So it could be an experience from that. So I tend to go out of my way, say, hey, good morning, PFC,
Hmm.
specialist, whatever it is. But at the same time, I feel on the other hand, is like, they shouldn't
You
be
are.
too
Hmm.
comfortable,
Correct. 100%.
ignoring the senior leaders. Because at the end of the day, it's even though some people don't rock the rank too professionally from time to time, right?
Yes.
It's like we to make E7 is tough. To make E7 is tough. It used to be tougher, but I feel like to make E7 is tough. They should at least give just a little bit of props, just a little bit, from
Yeah.
from the bottom up, right? Because that's how the army works, right? It's you got leaderships, you got subordinates, and you know, we
Yeah.
work
Correct.
or should work.
I think it's like, where does like rank start? You know what I mean? Like for instance,
Mm.
E1, E2, E3, like everyone should be talking to each other with some type of respect. Got it. We
Yeah.
have the junior enlisted that we all mash them up. But if we show them young
Hmm.
that E1 needs to respect that E2 and so on and so forth, and then when they grow up, it'll translate,
Yeah.
right? And it's hard to do if you don't want to do it. That's the bottom line. If you don't want
Hmm.
to do it, then it's hard to do. Anything you put your mind to, it's gonna happen. That's just the way I think, at least.
Yeah, and going back to the Marines do a good job. It's like, hey, you will respect that lance corporal, you will respect
Yes.
that corporal, and all that stuff, right? So that's just going back to that,
Mm-hmm. Correct. 100%.
which is fair,
Yeah. I
which
mean,
is unfair.
I saluted a lieutenant the other day. This actually happened to me the other day. I saluted a lieutenant the other day, and he just walked by like a lieutenant. And in my head, I was like, all right, cool. I'll just go fuck myself. Yeah, you know, like, come on, man. Like, what are we doing? But on the flip side, I always make sure. I even do it. First sergeants, commanders, sergeant majors. I go to parade rest. I go attention, whatever it is, automatically. I
Hmm.
assume it, so therefore they can put me at ease. So therefore, I'm never in the wrong. And this is
Correct.
what soldiers need to do. I was thinking about this. I was trying to remember it. But soldiers, going back to the point that soldiers just walk
Hmm.
by people, they do that to the wrong person, they're going to get their face lit up. So
Yeah.
I think it's easier just to give the greeting of the day, go to parade rest, go to attention, let them unlock you up. And therefore,
Yeah.
you've already showed respect, they acknowledged it, and you're moving forward. But if you don't go to parade rest, I remember if I didn't go to parade rest, I was done. I was
Yeah.
doing push ups. I was doing push-ups. If
Oh
my
yeah.
PC was on the wrong way, I was doing push-ups. It's a
Yeah.
different time and age, but
Hmm.
respect is still never changed.
Correct. Correct. No, and that is the true statement. I think people, how can I say, confuse those type of actions with lack of respect. I can smoke the shit out of you, but still respect you at the end of the day as a man or a woman or whatever it is, right?
Oh yes.
And I think people forget that, like, hey, I have the authority to do this. Doesn't mean I have to, but doesn't mean because I have the authority I have to disrespect you. Doesn't mean because you're wrong I have to disrespect you. I don't know how many people I've told through my career, like, I've been in combat arms my whole life. I have yet to yell at anyone. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I've yet to yell. Like, I don't need to yell and lose my cool in order to get a good point across.
Mm-hmm.
I have, outside of yelling for, like, like you said, the 3Ds, or hey, contact left, whatever it
Yeah.
is, right? Outside of those type of situations, never had to yell at someone to square them away. I have had to talk very sarcastically
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
them, but never actually had to yell at anybody. And like, how you see videos be like, "Rah, rah, 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 rah," like,
Mm-hmm.
what are you doing, man? Like, and I'm glad that we did get away from that.
Yeah.
And but I think we're at I said that at the high side of the other side of the pendulum, and we need to bring it back a little bit. How we do that, it's a challenge, right?
I think a lot of NCOs have just given up and just want to do their time.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's come to. I've seen soldiers, I've seen leaders,
Hmm.
I've seen multiple people just get away with what you would say in figuratively with murder just
Hmm.
because of the feelings part.
Yeah.
If you offend someone, if you say the wrong thing, if you say something that can be taken to the top three, which is EO, Sharp, and IG,
Hmm.
commanders and first sergeants or leaders, they may not want to deal with it, so they
Yeah.
just side with that individual. It's like playing tag. The first person that makes it is the person who has the who's going to be defended, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. So I think a lot of these leaders have just come to a point that they're just going to do their time and they're just
Hmm.
going to get out unscathed, and that's it. They're going to worry about themselves. I'm not going to lie. I feel it. I see it. I see
Hmm.
it. Like, I've walked past individuals and I've seen them. I see them say, hey, this person shouldn't be doing that. And you'd be like, all right, so tell them something. Nah, I'm cool on that. And they'll just keep walking.
Yeah.
It, not my problem. Shoot, I even put out a TikTok that said, it was something along the lines of, should we be correcting people,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And it was my thought process is, if I saw the soldier at 1300, that means that person went to accountability formation. They
Hmm.
showed up at 09.
Hmm.
They went to lunch,
Hmm.
and they passed multiple leaders, and no one has said nothing to that individual. So if in your footprint it's accepted, when I say something, you may tell me to go fuck off, or you might correct it, but you're going to go back and do it because your culture allowed it. So, and that's another thing. It depends on where you are. I'm in the CAV. We do
Hmm.
things different.
Yep.
SVAP does things different. The Rangers do things different.
Hmm.
SOAR does things different. No, I think regulations are there to just, when something egregiously happens,
Hmm.
they can enforce it. Other
Yeah.
than that, at this point, I think we're in the Wild West. Sometimes I think we're in the Wild West. I'm not gonna lie. So many
so
things happen.
So my question to you, when while you're saying that, right? Well, you say that you're in the cab, they do things different, and somewhere else different, right? Do
Hmm.
you feel that is just, or do you feel that we should standardize?
That's a hard one, man, because I drink the cab Kool-Aid crazy. I would have my Stetsons. I did my spur ride. I
Yeah.
enjoy I enjoy the cab. I enjoy
Hmm.
the cab mentality of the BC. I like the BCT, the combat arms side.
Okay.
I like when I was down with the platoons. I love it. Like, you're with the mortars, you're with the
Hmm.
infantrymen, you're with the scouts, snipers. Like, I enjoy the cab life. Now on the flip side, there's some things that cab does or that's not the same as someone else, right? The
Hmm.
fact that we even wear Stetsons, that's an
Okay.
exception to the rule. Now, if
Okay.
you took the Stetsons away, that's kind of like, it's no longer the cab. Now you're just regular army. So everyone,
Yeah.
here's the thing: we're in the uniform service.
Hmm.
Uniform means that everyone's the same. One
Yes.
formation, uniform, right? You
Allegedly,
break it
yes.
down. But every single element has their uniqueness to them. You
Mm-hmm.
go to Liberty, they have their beret all the way canted. They're still wearing berets. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can barely see their eyes, but
Yeah.
that's airborne,
Yeah.
right? So I guess you it's a it's a total contradiction ultimately
Mm-hmm.
because 670-1 says you don't do this.
Yeah.
But there's policies in place that allows it to happen, which is the exception to the rule. If you wanted to go by uniform service, then yes, everything should be standardized and then everyone looks the same. You would never be able to tell an airborne soldier from a Cav Scout from a medic because everyone will be wearing PCs from an
Mm-hmm.
SVAB soldier too, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, in my little humble opinion, I enjoy it. I enjoy wearing a Stetson. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's cool. I think there are bigger things that we probably should worry about. Just overall standards and discipline. I think that's where we need to attack it. But if we attack it, then you got guys like thought process like me that's like, well, how come he gets to wear his beret like that? That's standards and discipline.
Yeah, so there's a small piece of that, not fully related, but it's the thing that you said, right? It's the bigger things that we should be worried about.
Mm-hmm.
But I've heard that argument too much when correcting a simple deficiency. Hey, soldier, get your hands out your pocket. But what about the sharp case? What the hell does the sharp case have to do with your hands in your pockets? What does
Correct.
the sharp program have to do with any of that?
Yep.
Right? So those type of things is the mentality that I feel because I've seen it from senior NCOs on TikTok, right? The
Mm-hmm.
Miltalk community. I've
Yes.
seen them talk about that. Why are you worried about somebody's facial hair? You should be worrying about the sexual harassment that goes on at Fort Cavazos, unfortunately. And God bless you for being there. By the way, like, God bless you for being there. That place has been fucked up since I was active duty in 2008. So that's what I'm saying. Good
Jesus,
for
yeah.
you, man. Good for you.
I'm almost making it.
Yeah. With the same rank. So good for you, man. Like,
Yes.
that, oh man, that place is that. How do you fix that place?
Obviously, you somehow you can't because when the biggest incident happened a few years ago with Vanessa
Hmm.
Guillen, may she rest in peace.
Hmm.
They got rid of all of the top brass, right?
Yeah.
So I get there August of 2020,
Hmm.
and guess what? We're still not worried about accountability. I literally hear all accounted for
Hmm.
on my very first morning accountability. I said,
Okay.
hold up. So this happened. These people got relieved,
Hmm.
and we're still doing this. I think the only way we can fix anything is by holding people accountable. And that's a
Yeah.
rough one to do.
Yeah.
Because,
And Fort Hood is I mean, Fort Cabazos, right? It's
yeah, it's hood, though.
yes. You know what gets me though is every time you go through the gate and they say "Welcome to the great place," so condescendingly. Welcome to the
Yeah,
great place. It's like, hey, stop it! You're being
yeah.
disrespectful, my friend. You know.
It could be a great place, man. It could be. It could be. So much tradition going on here, man.
Hmm.
It's like everyone's here. It's the biggest, I think, other than NTC, the biggest training area
Hmm.
available. Like,
Yeah.
it's such a good place to be. It's Texas. It's like they love veterans, but we got to do better.
Yeah. Oh, 100%, man, 100%. So, as we're gonna close this up, right? 42
Mm-hmm.
minutes in and counting, right? I wanna ask you one question. You ready for this one? All
Hope so.
right.
Yes.
If you were dictator king for the day of the army, what would you implement and why?
If I were dictator or king, if I were king for a day, basically,
Basically, yeah,
right?
you whatever you say, it goes. What would you implement and why? That your rank can handle, of course.
I'd I would implement accountability, not as
Okay.
in this person's here. I'm talking about holding us accountable. NCOs, you're a senior leader. We get away with a lot. We get away
Hmm.
with a lot. We can do a lot, and that's the flexibility we get. However, and that's why things are like that. I could not show up to formation, and I can just call or send a text and say, "Hey, I'm running late. I'm at an appointment or
Okay.
whatever it is,"
Hmm.
and that's cool. Joe does it. Joe's gonna get his shit pushed in. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I think holding people accountable all throughout the formation is pivotal because that way, everyone knows that they have to be on their P's and Q's and they have to leave the Army a better place or that unit a better place. So if Sergeant Major, as Command Sergeant Major and Colonel such and such say, hey, this is how we're going to operate, everyone falls in line. I'm gonna hold you accountable, whether it's a counseling because you decided you want to send these guys out here on a 24-hour mission when you knew there was a hurricane coming, but you because you're chasing a bullet, whatever it is,
Hmm.
then hold them accountable. That's what I would do. I would hold everyone equally accountable. Therefore, we would get a better product. That's my
Okay,
thought
so
process.
oh no, it's good. So when you talk about accountable, would it be like immediate relief of costs, or how does
No,
that look like?
no, I don't want to. I don't want to be too egregious with it, but it's the same process. It's like you handle everything at the lowest level. So you have your verbal.
Hmm.
Hey, I told you not to do this. I need you to talk through this because soldiers are complaining, and that's another thing. I will probably implement like subordinate evaluations. That makes
Okay.
sense. Kind of like
Yes.
peering people out, but like, hey, subordinates is what's going on, but at a local level, not this EO command climate survey. I'm talking about at the
Hmm.
platoon level. But yeah,
Yeah.
like it will be a progression. Like you do things once, you're like, all right, cool. Hey, slap on the wrist. You do it a couple times, and there's
Hmm.
no valid excuse. Like if I don't see that your child is in the emergency room or something like that, there's no reason why you shouldn't be. I mean, there are reasons, but it has
Hmm.
to be like egregious for it to be a second and third and fourth time. But there has to be a point. It's a progression. There has to be a point in which there's some paperwork or uh, counseling, Article 15. I don't know. I don't. Well, I do know what it looks like, but I
Hmm.
don't want to be egregious. Like, hey, Sergeant First Class Cruz didn't show up today to formation. All right, so UCMJ. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But he has to be held accountable. Just because Sergeant First Class Cruz is a Sergeant First Class does not make him above the law. He gets a little leeway because he's been in for a while, but
Hmm.
that's the thing. Where does leeway end?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what that looks like for me. I think accountability is a big thing, and until we do that, everyone's just going to be pulling their own way and doing whatever they can do. Just like they say, do what your rank can handle,
Oh, 100
and
percent.
and people do it. So,
Oh
but
yeah.
Joe's rank can't handle too much, so Joe gets crushed.
You're
That's
not
the
wrong.
thing. Yeah. So I think that's what I would do.
All right, man. Well, Mr. Saeed Cruz, our first class Cruz. Before we head out, any pardon, pardon?
Parting words of wisdom. That's a good one. Let me think. Let me pull it up real fast. There's a Chinese proverb, right?
Hmm.
It says, "Tell me, and I'll forget. Show
Okay.
me, and I may remember. Involve me, and I'll understand." Right?
Yeah.
So we can talk. We can give an example, but until we bring someone in and make them feel as they're part of the team, you may not get a full understanding from that individual.
That's a good one, man. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna use that when I'm on the podium. You know.
Hell yeah.
I appreciate it. So, where can people find you at? Because you do have your own podcast, you do have your own thing going on. So feel free
Yes,
to.
sir.
Where can people find you at, man?
On YouTube, it's Roger Sarnt, and I mean, if you just type in Roger Sarnt podcast, you'll find it on YouTube. I'm on all streaming platforms. On TikTok is Roger Sarnt. Facebook, I don't really do too much with it. I'm trying to build it. Discord, all that. Everything is Roger Sarnt. SARNT.
SARNT.
NT.
What about the
Yes.
Roger? Is it full word or three letters?
No, it's Roger. It's just ROGER.
Oh, okay. I guess I'll be honest with you. I was trying to find on your YouTube, and I was like, "Oh man, which one is it?" And it's a lot of
Yeah.
people that pop up, you know. And same thing with
Correct.
me. You look try to find on YouTube.
I did. Yep.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show, man. I appreciate all the communications, and hopefully, willing, either I can join you sometime and we can get educated, or we
Hell
can
yeah.
continue to do this on a multiple spectrum. You know.
I'm all for it, brother. I appreciate you having me, man. Thank you so
Uh,
much.
awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, brother. Take care. Thank you.
For sure. Well, there you have it, Mr. Roger Sergeant Saeed Cruz himself. Again, wonderful individual. We appreciate him for coming on the show. And just for news to come is we will be rebranding soon. Stay tuned for new episodes, new content, and a wider variety of excitement. For all y'all listening still, the Solutions Podcast, we're out.